The next item on our agenda is the keynote speech by Michael Behm, who is a professor of occupational safety at East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. Professor Mike is also the part-time program director for CIB. He served as coordinator of CIB's Working Commission on Safety and Health in Construction from 2012 to 2019. In 2011, he was a research fellow at the Center for Urban Greenery and Ecology in Singapore to study safe design aspects of rooftop and vertical greenery systems. In 2013, Professor Mike was a visiting research fellow at RMIT University in Melbourne, Australia. His vast experience in global research affiliations led to today's keynote speech. How big is the world? Benefits of international academic collaborations. The virtual stage is yours, Professor Mike.
Thank you so much. And I believe I can share my screen. Is it perfect? Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you so much. And good morning to everyone at Western Sydney. It's Sunday evening here on the East Coast of the US. And I'm just so happy and honored to be here. The title is How Big is the World? And actually, this is actually a children's book that I used to read my kids. And my youngest son is here. Ian is 14. I think he's joining us. I hope he didn't just join in and go off and do something else. But the book is a really interesting book, and I reflect on this book actually quite a bit. It's about Little Mole, and Little Mole asks his father, "How big is the world?" And his father says, "Well, why don't you go and find out?" And so Little Mole starts on a journey. And when I think about journeys, I think about the research journey. I think about curiosity and how we need to meet new people, read new things, read new literature, explore new opportunities. And so Little Mole goes on a journey. His journey starts by asking a spider, "How big is the world?" The spider says, "It's as big as my web, and that's it. Thank you very much." And so Little Mole does not stop there. He does not take that for the answer. And he goes on and he meets new friends along the way. He meets a horse, he meets a bird, he meets a rabbit, he meets all these folks. And finally, he meets a whale. And the whale takes him through the vast oceans, and they visit the various places throughout the world. And the one thing that kind of sticks with me is that the whale says to Little Mole, you know, he asks, so how big is this? And the whale goes, it's just the more you look, the more you will find. That's his advice. And I think that's my advice for all of you is to keep on looking and to keep on searching in your research and in your global network. I'd like to talk a little bit about my research, and I was supposed to time myself, and I forgot about that. So now I have my timer on after two or three minutes. But when you look at this particular picture, what is your initial reaction, right? What do you think, right? When you think about work safety and health, you think there's a risk here. But as engineers, as project managers, as problem solvers, as designers, as construction supervisors, how do we prevent this particular risk? We can look at this individual and say, well, they're doing something unsafe. It's unsafe behavior. They're not following procedures. They're not following their training. But how big is the world, right? So I think the world's a little bit bigger than just that individual. It's also about design. It's about planning. It's about organization. When I look at this picture, I say to myself, well, why is the HVAC equipment on the roof in the first place? Why is it so close to the edge? Why are the things that this individual has to work on, why are they facing the ledge? Why aren't they facing the other way? You'll see some temporary wiring there. Well, why would there be temporary wiring? Why can't we have electrical outlets up on the roof for him to use? Why access the roof via a temporary ladder? Why don't we have fixed ladders within the core of the building so that this person and other people who have to access the roof to do work, why? So it can be accessible and very safe. So looking at this particular picture tells different stories. So are you the spider who only looks inside the web, or are you the whale who looks throughout the ocean? And so this is a chart that I think kind of tells some stories as well too, in terms of our ability to influence workplace safety and health. Either if you're from the client side at startup, typically we start right before the building is going to be commissioned and people enter the building, and that's a little bit too late. The building is already designed, the equipment is there. So the best we can do is try to tell people to be careful, write procedures, do some training. The same with construction. If our concern is construction safety and health, we still usually don't really plan very appropriately. We don't design things very appropriately. We miss that ability. So my research really looks at how we can work with architects and engineers. And I know so in preparing for this, I was actually looking on your website, and I saw that there's a project going on at Western City looking at building information modeling and construction safety management. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to learn and see what comes of that particular project. So that was exciting. So, but our ability to really foresee and anticipate hazards and risks in the design phase can be very limited. It's really hard to, building information modeling helps us try to pictorially and visually understand that. But many times it's really hard to do that. And so my research tries to be practical and look at how we can build the area up underneath that particular red line on the left in the conceptual design and engineering stages, and connecting it to sustainability and green buildings. This is something that I've been very interested in terms of the social dimension of sustainability. The terms green and sustainable have been used interchangeably. I hope they're still not, because they are two they're two dissimilar things. Sustainability is a more encompassing view of green. Green is about the environment, but sustainability is also about the economic pillar and the social pillar, which is where workplace safety and health fits in. It's that social dimension that is often overlooked as well too. And so my work has been trying to incorporate this into green building systems. Some really good things that have happened. The United States Green Building Council does recognize that the meaning of green has to evolve to include the human and the social relationships. There was a very unfortunate case study that happened here in the States about 15 years ago. This was a casino hotel, a very large project that was shooting for the highest green building system rating of platinum. And I know you're on I think a star system in Australia, yeah. So this would be the highest number of stars. This is the platinum rating. And so, however, within an 18-month period during the construction, 6 construction workers died during the construction of this particular project. And it prompted a newspaper reporter to ask this particular question, which I think is a really interesting and poignant question, and something that we really need to really think about as we look at that more holistic view of the word sustainability, and not just being green. It's not green buildings, but it's sustainable buildings. And if the process by which we build something is this, it's really unsustainable. And I do a lot of work with NIOSH, which is our governmental safety and health research agency at the federal government level, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. And I got a call from a colleague. She was in Boston, and she said, this is about 2010, and she said, I just watched a group of landscapers hoist a lawnmower up onto the 6th floor of a building, and they used this little rope, and they didn't partition off anything, and I thought the lawnmower was going to fall, and thus began my curiosity and my journey to really look at green roofs, and actually that turned into more of urban greenery systems, and I'll kind of get there to kind of where that was going. And so how do you take care of a green roof? What do you do? How do you do that? What are the health and safety issues? I think whenever we do things at height, right? Those are things when construction and the built environment, we tend to have more risk in terms of the work that we do. This is one of the worst designed green roofs I could show you. It's a 50-story building in a large city in the middle of America, and you can see the wind here is just blowing the rooftop greenery off of the roof, and it's just not designed well at all. When I visited this roof, there were workers working right near the edge without fall protection. There was nowhere for them to tie off to. It was just a real mess. And not all the green roofs were like that, but we learned a lot. We found a lot of issues here in the States. Found some beautiful green roofs as well too. And so potentially some innovative ways to take care of green roofs. I think some innovation and creativity. But at the same time that I was going about my work, I was reading literature, trying to find, not just peer-reviewed literature, but really looking at green roof associations. Was a lot going on in Germany, Singapore, Hong Kong, and lo and behold, I found these guidelines on the design for safety of rooftop greenery. And so, I thought I was the only crazy person in the world looking at safety on rooftop greenery, and I found that there was one other person in the world just as crazy as I was. And so I began this email conversation. I bought these guidelines, and then I started emailing them, and I found out that they had a research fellowship program, and I thought, well, geez, this sounds really cool. And I applied and was awarded that, and lived in Singapore for 3 months, and then got to go back multiple times and do workshops and continue this particular project. And so, for me at that point, it was just an incredible experience, and I'll talk about that research that we did, and just the beauty of rooftop greenery. Certainly I learned so much about plants and horticulture. So I certainly wouldn't be your expert in landscape architecture, but I can talk a little bit about plant selection and things of that nature now. I can certainly talk about the environmental benefits of urban greenery systems. So I learned so much, and I appreciated so much just about Singapore and its kind of the unique culture that is Singapore. And so I show you this particular picture because this is its transformation. And I think, wow, what a difference, right? What a cool difference in turning that rooftop into this beautiful urban playground. And I'm not sure if you've seen this building. This is a university in Singapore. Visited this one a couple of times because it's so interesting and unique. The swooping green roof on the right is actually designed. The intent is for students to use that to walk into the building. The one on the left is actually so steep that you're not allowed to walk up on that particular portion of the green roof. But it's so steep that maintenance to maintain it is actually quite difficult. And this kind of shows you the steepness. This shows you a different view. When I was there, the workers who would maintain this side of it, they would actually they would have these strap-on spikes, so that they would have these spikes that they would, when they'd walk, they could kind of stick in the ground just a little bit better. So there you have it. But we looked at vertical greenery systems as well too, and how they were designed and how they were maintained. We saw award-winning green walls and green roof, just very, very beautiful. We looked at how things are accessed, how things need to be maintained. I learned about structural loading, and the fact that dirt, as you know, and greenery, as you know, is quite heavy. And when it's saturated in a Singapore monsoon, it is really heavy. And so you really need to take all of those things into consideration. And this is actually a project where there was a miscalculation on the structural loading in the original design. And then actually the green roof consultant that I was working with, he actually found the calculation error. which was kind of interesting. You know, car parks, the top of a car park in a highly urbanized area turns into this beautiful, you know, this really beautiful view. Biodiversity. We, with green roofs and urban greenery systems comes things like butterflies and bees, and oh yes, oh by the way, snakes. So a little surprise, a little unique, maybe workplace hazard that we weren't thinking about. So we didn't stay here very long. Got here long enough to snap a picture, and I zoomed in for sure. I'm not a snake person, so zoomed in on that one, and then we went about our way. But we learned about some really unique innovations that architects and design teams were thinking about. Certainly, you know, the one thing that I definitely learned and appreciated is that the aesthetic value from the client standpoint on urban greenery systems is of high importance. And so they want green walls to be maintained. They want them to be beautiful. They want them to function as they have been designed. And so rather than, you know, giving people ladders or expecting them to bring their ladders with them and use ladders to maintain this greenery system, this architectural team actually, they put in space behind the green wall. They put the greenery on French doors, which came out, and you can see that there's a guardrail system that's in there as well too. So there's no personal protective equipment required. This is one where the columns rotate. And so you can stand on the nice platform behind the guardrail and do the work that you need to do, and you can rotate that particular platform. Now, this was an innovation that was specifically because of a safety and not wanting, you know, workers to take that risk and go outside of the guardrail. But when the when the horticulturalist found out about this innovation, that they could actually turn it, then that developed their innovation in terms of they could specify different plants because of the sunshade ratio and the different things that were going on with what the plants needed. So, you know, many times we view life cycle safety and health as kind of an add-on, you know, maybe even a burden to the project. And so my research looks at synergizing workplace safety and health in with other project goals and seeing the value in those particular win-win situations as well too. And so remember the chart and the difference kind of, you know, between design and redesign. And so once the building is already built, it's really hard and expensive and ineffective to really make changes. And that's where if we can make better decisions in the beginning of the project, it's going to go a long way. And so this is a primary school in Singapore, beautiful. When you stand on the ground, when you stand on the street and you look up, these ledges are beautiful all the way around, and so they need to be maintained. However, there were no provisions to even think about a worker going out here in a safe manner. So there's no tie-off points at all along this particular building. So it became a problem. And you can see, you know, how the plants are and how thin the ledges are. So this picture, and I'll show you a close-up of it, but in the middle there behind the greenery is a horizontal lifeline. This was installed after the building was built, after the greenery was there, after they realized, oh, we can't do anything because there's no tie-off points to maintain safety when people are there. So they put this in afterwards, but still it looks a little bit inefficient. Workers probably can't get behind that greenery, I don't think. Probably not the best in the world. And I'm not sure if you can see, if you can look kind of real close, you can kind of see some cracking that's going on with that anchor point. And so the structural integrity, you know, it's just, it's a retrofit, it's a redesign. It's not the original intent. So it's really not working, and it's not going to be structurally sound. And if somebody would actually have to use this, to prevent a fall or put force on this, it could be very contentious. So our work in Singapore, we hope, is very practical in that, and the gentleman that I worked with, the gentleman who is thinking this stuff, he was or he's a landscape architect, and so him and I just really, we had two different fields, and so that was great having that kind of multidisciplinary view, because but we had the same interests, and so we could have these conversations from these multidisciplinary views, and I think came up with something pretty interesting. So we have all these design ideas, and so we actually revised the safe design guidelines for rooftop greenery into the safe design guidelines for urban or for skyrise greenery systems, to include walls, ledges, and to enhance the roof guidelines. So it's just, all these different pictures and ideas for architects and design engineers to think about. And these are just some examples of that aforementioned example that we showed you. And of course, I'm not going to bore you with the academic methodology at this point, but we did produce a couple of papers as well that folks can take a look at. So like Little Mole, I came back, and hopefully, we worked really hard with the U.S. Green Building Council to make some inroads. NIOSH was extremely supportive in the project and the work that I was doing. We did a lot of workshops on safe, green, and sustainable construction when I got back. We have a credit called Prevention Through Design, or Safety Through Design, in the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED system. It's an optional credit. I wish it was a mandatory credit, but it's a good start, I think. And so, the future, I would encourage you to Google Stefano Barreri's urban vertical forest. I believe there's some concepts going in China, and I believe there's some in Italy as well too. And so these large structures that have all these trees on them, it just looks phenomenal. I have so many questions about how they build this, about how they maintain it, about the structural loading. It's just a really just phenomenal feat of engineering. And here's a picture of it. This is something I got off the internet. This is not my photo. So, but how big is the world? How big is your world? How big is your research? How big will your research be? Will it be practical? And so who will you talk to along that research journey? And so as Little Mole went along his journey, he got different views about how big is the world. But Little Mole didn't judge anybody. He just simply acknowledged what they were saying, and he acknowledged their particular worldview, and he went on in a very curious way. And so I hope that's what you do as well too, is to be open-minded and to be curious and to take in lots of people's views, opinion, and to continue reading. And when Little Mole gets back, his father is still up, and his father says, "So, Little Mole, how big is the world?" Little Mole says, "It's as big as you want it to be." And I think that's true. And that's what I hope that your world is as big as you want it to be, because it's really, in the end, it's not about the research. It's not about publications. It's about people. It's about the people you meet, the friends you meet, just the interesting cups of coffee that you have with folks. It's about friends for lifetime. The gentleman to my right, Chun Hawk, he will be my friend for the rest of my life. There's no doubt. And if I could leave you with a summer read, because I know it's summertime down in Australia, and if you're not reading peer-reviewed literature or something for your dissertation, maybe you have read The Alchemist, but maybe you've not. I've read this book about 3 or 4 times in my life, and each time I get something different from it. And so even if you've read it, I would encourage you to read The Alchemist. It's about a young man's journey and his quest. And finally, he realizes that, it's not about the end, but it's about that journey. So I wish you luck on your particular journey. And I hope that you stay in touch. And I'm really thankful. I hope this was beneficial in some particular way. And I'd love to take questions and have a conversation. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you very much for the inspirational speech, Professor. It was really enlightening because you were touching so many different levels in our lives with the nursery books, the stories, and also ending up it with Alchemist, one of my favorite books. I particularly liked how you initiated the speech as well. Thank you so much. Now we would like to open the event for questions. Do we have any questions for Professor Mike from anyone?
All very quiet. I've just got one comment. I just talking about safety. 12 years ago, I had to go to China to investigate a paint defect. And I recall with horror, I saw a gentleman on a balcony with about distance of about half a meter and 200 meters of fall, using an angle grinder to take sections of concrete with paint and then hand them to me. And I just almost had to close my eyes. It just reminded me when he said about that access, and I thought, oh, brought back a very, very unpleasant memory.
Yeah, I mean, those things happen all over the world. And
very true.
Yeah. Mike, it was a very good talk, and we all are inspired and happy to hear that. I just wanted to find out your views. Mental health have been a main issue in the construction industry. You hear many alarming statistics that it is affecting many of the workers right across the globe. What are your views on that, and what is the? Do you have any understanding of that as to the state of it in the US?
I'm so. It's almost as if I planted that question, but I did not. I'm really happy you asked that question because that's such an important issue for the construction sector. And as we become more curious and learn more and ask different questions and become more empathetic about mental health and about the different conditions that are construction of being away from home to go to remote job sites. There's been a lot of work done in Australia in the fly-in, fly-out sector, in the mining sector that is translatable. But yeah, I believe worldwide, unfortunately, the construction sector is in the top 2 to top 3 sectors for suicide, and that's particularly among middle-aged males. And I know there's a lot of work being done. I have a really good colleague here in the States. His name is Cal Beyer, Beyer, and he runs the I'm going to butcher this, the Construction Suicide Prevention Alliance or something, but he's very active on LinkedIn. And a couple colleagues of mine we've recently tried to start asking the question, how does design influence mental health? So we're actually in the beginning stages of trying to just broach that question from a more conceptual standpoint, but it's a really unfortunate but interesting question, and I would encourage all the folks on our call today to learn more about that. So that's a great question.
Yes, Michael, a few of our researchers, both staff and students, are interested in this area and working in this area. I know few have applied for research projects and working on various aspects. There are some who are doing PhD on this area. So it's a very important area, as you suggested. Yes. Thanks, Mike.
I'd like to see CIB take a role in this as well too.
That's
I have a
that's
question.
right.
Maybe you can help me push that along, Srinath.
Yes, we'll try to. It is a big need right across the industry. I think it's worldwide issue. It's not pertaining to a particular country. It is going across all countries. So, and it's a major issue, and we need to take some action towards that. Bashar, you had a question, yeah?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for the presentation. I mean, regarding the issue of the mental health, and you talk about the designs and how it affects, I mean, the suicide rates and mental health and stuff. I was just, I mean, based on what they're working on the US, I was just looking at, I mean, is it kind of what researchers has been looking at in terms of how we design our project environment in terms of the governance, the government regulations, and all sorts of things regarding to the mental health issues? It is something that's the researcher in the state, it is something they are looking at. I'm talking about the way the project organization has been designed. So that's one of my questions.
That's a really great question. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's my understanding that that we've not really focused on those upstream issues and how they affect mental health. We're only beginning to start to ask those questions. We've been very, and like anything, you know, you start where the issues are, and so, you know, starting at the sharp end with education and awareness. I think, you know, Australia, Europe, the US has done a lot in terms of, you know, those more sharp end types of recognition and awareness and training and support activities. And now, you know, I think it's just a natural evolution to try to understand how do we, you know, how does project management, what's the influence on this particular topic? How do we, you know, organize our projects? How do we schedule our projects? Where's the workforce? How do we house the workforce? How do we treat the workforce? So, I mean, I think that's kind of the natural evolution, and it's a really would be a really interesting research topic and practical topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have another question from Dr. Matt Stevens. Is part of the challenge in construction safety is to connect it to the workers' off-duty safety with their family and friends?
Let me see, I'll have to. You know, I think you know, that's a hard one for me to answer. I recall about 15 years ago, I had a student do a thesis that tried to connect off-the-job safety programs to workplace safety, and honestly, it's just not an area that I'm very well versed in. I forget that thesis, but I know that there's some link there, but you know, I think that's more of a, you know, that kind of psychological safety aspect, and so there's something there. I'm not sure I can articulate it.
Okay, thank you for your time and the fabulous speech, Professor Mike.